The House on Quiet Lane. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the suburban street as the Thompsons' minivan pulled up to their new home. Sarah Thompson clutched her husband Mike's hand, her eyes fixed on the imposing Victorian structure before them. The white paint was peeling and the windows were grimy, but even in its weathered state, the house maintained an air of faded grandeur. "Are you sure about this, Mike?" Sarah whispered, watching their 6-year-old daughter Emily bound up the overgrown path toward the front porch. "Look, honey, it's a steal for this neighborhood," Mike replied, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "With a little work, it'll be perfect." Emily's excited voice rang out from the porch. "Mommy, Daddy, hurry up! It's like a fairy tale house!" If only they had known then how wrong that assessment would be. The first few days were filled with the chaos of moving, unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, and trying to make the old house feel like home. Sarah spent hours scrubbing windows and floors, fighting a seemingly endless battle against decades of accumulated dust. Mike tackled the creaky floorboards and stubborn door hinges, though his fixes never seemed to last. It started small, as these things often do. Kitchen cabinets they'd sworn they'd closed would be wide open in the morning. Objects wouldn't stay where they were placed. Emily's toys would migrate across her room overnight. They blamed the old house's settling, the uneven floors, their own forgetfulness, anything but the truth that was slowly creeping up on them. Then Emily began talking about Sarah. "Sarah says she likes my dolls," Emily announced at dinner one evening, casually coloring in her book as her parents exchanged worried glances. "Who's Sarah, sweetie?" her mother asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "The girl who lives in my room. She's my age, and she's very lonely." Emily looked up, her innocent eyes meeting her mother's concerned gaze. "She says she's been waiting for a friend for a very long time." That night, after Emily was asleep, Mike and Sarah searched the local library's online archives. The story they found sent chills down their spines. In 1952, 6-year-old Sarah Anderson had vanished from the house without a trace. Her parents had reported hearing her talking to an imaginary friend in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. The case had never been solved. The activity in the house escalated rapidly after that. Childish laughter echoed through the halls at night. Crayon drawings appeared on walls, dark, disturbing images that no 6-year-old should create. Small handprints materialized on mirrors and windows, too high for Emily to reach. Sarah began finding old photographs scattered around the house, black and white images of a solemn-faced little girl in an outdated dress. In each photo, the girl's eyes seemed to follow the viewer, and her expression grew progressively more malevolent. One night, Sarah woke to the sound of Emily giggling. Following the sound to her daughter's room, she froze in the doorway. Emily sat in the center of a circle of floating toys, talking animatedly to a translucent figure that sat across from her. A little girl in a 1950s dress, her form flickering like a candle flame. "Emily!" Sarah screamed. The ghostly figure turned, revealing hollow black eyes and a twisted smile. The toys crashed to the floor as the spirit vanished with an ear-splitting shriek. "But Mommy, Sarah just wants to play," Emily protested as Sarah scooped her up. "She says she's been so lonely since her other friends left." "What other friends, Emily?" Mike asked, appearing in the doorway. "The other children who lived here. Sarah says they all stayed to play with her forever." The implications of those words spurred the Thompsons into action. They threw essential items into suitcases, determined to leave immediately. But the house had other plans. As they reached the front door, every window and door slammed shut simultaneously. The lights began to flicker, and a child's voice echoed through the halls. "Nobody leaves!" The voice was sweet and terrible at once. "I won't be alone again." Objects began flying through the air. Books, toys, picture frames became projectiles. Sarah clutched Emily close as Mike frantically tried to break down the front door. The temperature dropped dramatically, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. The ghostly figure of Sarah Anderson materialized in the center of the room, her form more solid than before. Her eyes were fixed on Emily, and her mouth twisted into an unnatural smile. "Stay and play with me, Emily," she crooned, extending a transparent hand. "Stay forever, like the others." Emily struggled in her mother's arms, reaching toward the ghost. "Sarah, you're scaring me!" Something in Emily's voice seemed to reach the spirit. The ghost child's expression flickered between longing and rage, between loneliness and malice. The assault of flying objects gradually ceased. "I just wanted a friend," the ghost whispered, her form beginning to fade. "It's so lonely here." "I know, Sarah," Emily said softly. "But you can't keep people here if they don't want to stay. That's not what friends do." The ghost of Sarah Anderson regarded them silently for a long moment. Then, with a sound like a distant sob, she vanished. The doors and windows flew open, and warm air rushed back into the house. The Thompsons didn't wait to see if Sarah Anderson would change her mind. They fled into the night, leaving behind their furniture, their possessions, and the dark history of the house on Quiet Lane. 2 weeks later, a for sale sign appeared in front of the old Victorian house. The real estate listing mentioned the spacious rooms, the historical architecture, and the surprisingly affordable price. It didn't mention the sound of children's laughter that neighbors sometimes heard late at night, or the small handprints that appeared on the dusty windows, or the lonely spirit of a little girl still waiting for someone to stay and play with her forever. Some say that on quiet nights, you can still see a small figure in an old-fashioned dress standing at the upstairs window, watching the street with hollow eyes, waiting for the next family to arrive. After all, someone will always be drawn to a beautiful old house with a surprisingly low price tag, especially if they don't ask too many questions about its history. And Sarah Anderson has all the time in the world to wait for her next playmate.